Okay, guys, we are live. And today we have with us, not only Ryan, our regular guest in the team, but we also have Arian from Earthling VC, my favorite investor in the world. I like to say that how can you tell a good investor from a bad investor? In my personal experience, it's anyone who backs me is a great investor. And everybody who passes is frankly a kind of a disappointing investor. So great to have you, Aaron. Maybe let's just kick things off with a quick intro from yourself and what Earthling does, and then we'll jump in. I think today's agenda, quick intros, and then we're going to talk about how to pitch your startup. Specifically, we're going to talk about SPEEDRUN. We made this really fun game where people can practice their pitch with AI Andrew Chen. It was great to work with him and the team on getting that done. And then if anybody wants to jump on and actually pitch live, we're jump into our Discord. If you want to jump into our Discord here, you're able to go and actually, pitch live here. We'll do that at the very end. So Ryan will be keeping an eye on our Discord, and if you want to give it a shot. So Aaron, why don't you kick it off?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of to leave it brief. So, I guess for those watching, proud investor in the Incite guys, but I run Earthling VC. We are a pre-seed fund. We invest primarily, I would say, VR-centric technology, but you could just call it next paradigm tech, so like VR, AI, robotics, and I get very pre-seed. That's if you want more detail, happy to go, but don't want to keep it too boring for your audience.
No, like I said, just quick intro is great. Arian does a lot in the in the VR space, and you've been super helpful for us in terms of introducing us to people, which has helped us a lot with informing our media strategy. We've been working on this for about a year. We've created a tool now where we can really rapidly iterate and create games. And so what we're doing now is taking some of these games that we've made and remixing them around interesting scenarios. And so SPEEDRUN, the applications are currently live. I think the application deadline is the Friday after next. So there's about 2 weeks left to apply. We thought it'd be really funny to get AI Andrew Chen or to turn Andrew Chen into an AI character, and then actually let you simulate what is it like to interview with SPEEDRUN. And we actually went through the SPEEDRUN interview process. I have the questions that they asked. So, all the questions that we've put in here are informed by our actual experience going through SPEEDRUN, specifically on the interview side of things. So I think that any good pitch really comes down to can you answer 4 questions well and succinctly? So the first one is just what are you doing? It's so surprising how many people, and Aaron, you can chime in here, when you say, hey, what are you doing? And then they talk to you for 3 minutes and you're like, I don't understand what you're doing. So I think the first thing for any pitch is you need to be able to explain your startup in 1 to 2 sentences, and they need to be short sentences. And Aaron, sorry, feel free to just jump in and chat because I'm just going to kind of wax poetic here.
I'll let you finish your kind of 4 points, and I'll just kind of add my color on top of it. One thing I will say, what I'm kind of curious to see with this, I haven't had the chance to play with this myself, but even though technically I'm on the same side of the table as Andrew, I've actually pitched him before. And so he's actually an LP in our fund, so I pitched him for our fund. So I'm kind of curious to see how approximate this is to my experience of doing that actually. But
we need to make a pitch an LP fund game. Then we should sell it for $1,000 though, because it's not a very large target audience of VCs.
You don't even need an AI for that. You could probably just build a decision tree, and it would probably
just put some post-it notes on a wall and just
exactly. No, but anyway, I'll let you kind of finish that, and I'll just
So it's just you need to be able to explain what you're doing succinctly, and then secondly, why is this a big opportunity? Third, what have you done to validate this idea in the market? So a lot of people like to come in with oh, you have to have traction, but it could just be hey, I've spoken to these many users, or oh, I've been in the space and I learned this. Depending on where you are, you just need to explain what have you done to validate within the market, and then lastly, why is your team set up to succeed and pitch success? Why is your team set up to be successful pursuing this idea?
Yeah, I think that I think that hits on some of the major points. I always kind of look at it a little bit more simply. And like, I think of course these questions also change as you kind of go through the stages, right? Like what's important at pre-seed is maybe not as important at like Series A or Series B or whatever.
Exactly.
Right? So, I'd say like the biggest indicator that always changes, of course, is just the traction, right? Like how much that really, really takes, like, it's just the biggest weight in the equation. But I think like if you're looking at more from the like, because this is obviously geared towards speedrun, I assume, right? We're looking at kind of very, very early teams. I think pitching generally is like not, I think people try to overcomplicate what you're actually trying to achieve with doing it, right? Which is you're basically trying to pitch the fact that you're solving somebody's problem that they've already decided they want to solve. And so in this specific case means you as a company are kind of pitching people that have already decided that they want to allocate into a certain industry or into a certain problem space, that you're a good team to solve that problem space, right? So like my rule of thumb generally is, particularly pre-seed, if you have to convince a team or like an investor that your problem exists or that they should care, like you already lost. Like it's just, you know, you might convince a later stage investor because the traction starts again, and that kind of gets to that point, starts to speak for itself and it validates, hey, this is a thing that exists that needs to be built into, right? And there's a lot of traction to validate it. But if you're at this stage, you're just fundamentally not convincing somebody, right, that your problem space matters if they don't already believe it. So that's just my personal philosophy, which is why I usually try to like, my advice to a lot of founders is always like try to find the good VCs that you have synergy with and don't just kind of like shoot from the hip at everybody, because particularly for stuff like what you guys are doing and like a lot of kind of the speed run adjacent companies that we're doing, like it's just not for everybody, right? Like, and I think it's just important to be aware of that. And so that's kind of like, I think just at a high level, I would put over all of that. Like, it's like you're just pitching to somebody that you're a good person to just do something that they already want to put money into, like conceptually.
No, that's exactly right. Because what we've seen is like anytime we talk to a gaming VC, it's like they get it. We're always like going multiple stages, and it's like I've like randomly pitched a whole bunch of VCs just because like, hey, I want to get my numbers up, and it's like they almost never goes anywhere, and it's always because you're like explaining, you're like, you say DAO, and they're like, what's DAO?
Yeah.
I'm like, DAU, like, and they're like, how do games make money? I'm like, I don't know. I have to explain. Yeah, it that makes a ton of sense of trying to find the right people.
Yeah, and so I think for me personally, like one of the things, and again, this is like specific, I think, to me. I know a few other investors that think this way, but definitely something I do is, like we're quite thesis driven fund. So for the most part, like, I already have ideas of like things that I believe in, right? Or like things that, again, conceptually I would find interesting to put money into. And so you really start to just gauge like, okay, like I get the problem space. So I don't need a lot of like, I don't need the founders to sit there and really explain to me why what they're doing is important. But I do try to do my work to figure out like, I believe in this team to do it, right? And so there, I think that's where you can get a bit creative. And I would say like for me recently, I feel like I've been having more completely non-business related conversations with people to just understand how they tick. But yeah, that's kind of me specifically. But also there's a Substack I wrote, where specifically like where I kind of focus on that part, right? Because always like you invest in important people doing, extraordinary people doing important things. The important things are kind of thesis defined, right? So you're just looking at extraordinary people and like how you can really try to gauge that down. And that's me, right? But I think by different means, that's where all investors kind of try to end up, right? Like we're just building thesis that these guys are really good for this problem. And again, this is a problem I just care about.
Yeah, and I think this is more for accelerators, but I was talking with someone just yesterday who joined the Discord and wanted to chat more about this. And he was saying like, oh, I don't think I'm ready to apply to speedrun. Like I don't have like a product yet. And I was like, well, no, an accelerator, like you don't need a product. Like you need to have like a really clear thesis. You have to have a really great team. And then I said, well, who's on your team? And he's like, oh, I don't have a CTO. I'm like, dude, stop talking about your product. You need to build the product. Like you need to convince another engineer. Like you need to convince an engineer who wants to join you. And like that needs to be your primary focus. And maybe because this guy was like a UI UX person, I said, well, hey, look, you can design the whole vision. You could even make like a clickable prototype. But I'm like that the goal really needs to be like to get an engineer, to get people excited to join you. And once you have great people on your team, then pitching is a lot easier, because when you're at especially at the accelerator stage, it's like, do you have the right team for it? and is this a compelling vision? And again, like having a playable demo is helpful, but like you have to be able to explain what you're doing shortly and then jump in and do it. So
right, and I think to your point, one thing I'll just add to that, and then it is everything is like a balance of weights when you're kind of looking at investment, right? In terms of like how you're building conviction that this team is good, right? And so, then the reality is like, let's say for like a team that is relatively new and young, hasn't had that much experience, like they might have to show more, right? Like, so they might actually have to have something more like, product development or whatever to sort of like give you data points to say, hey, these guys are actually really good. Like these guys really know how to execute. Versus like, let's say like a previous, and I'm not saying I necessarily agree with this, right? But, just kind of more the reality of the matter. An exited founder, or, someone, let's say like in the gaming space that like, kind of like you guys, right? Like there's just loads of brand name experience and all of that. You might not need as much of it, right? To sort of build conviction. Like, okay, we know that, these guys know what they're doing kind of thing. Like stuff they say, they can back it up basically.
Yeah. And I saw that with SpeedRun. There was, I felt like kind of two classes of founders. There was the young and they have something very tangible. Like they have a product that's getting some early numbers, or they were like senior people who had a really compelling concept, but usually didn't have like a working product yet. And it seemed like that what you're saying was very true, even with SpeedRun.
Totally.
And that's just like the reality,
right? It makes sense. It's just very logical, right? It's like how else, like you need data, right? Like if you have no data to go off, like it needs to be in the product, basically, right? That's where it comes from.
Exactly. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, let's go do an example here. So for this event, we actually took our pitch an investor idea and we remixed it with having Andrew Chen in there to roast you or write a check. And so, yeah, let's jump in here. And let's see.
I hope that chair has disruptive cushioning for our game-changing conversation.
But let's build a little.
Let's pivot to your startup pitch, shall we?
A picture here.
I just like giving a little bit of context about what we built here because we've been adding new games to our platform periodically, and it's accelerating with every new feature, every new update that we add to the platform. It allows us to make new games much quicker. And this was one of those experiments of doing that, right? We already had a game that we had worked on that was what was it called? VC from Hell, where the guy was just intentionally outrageous, some like, and
he was, we told him to be Ross Hanneman from HBO's Silicon Valley.
Right.
And he really nailed it.
And the key thing of that game was that it would give you a random startup idea, like a silly, crazy, random startup idea that you had to then defend to this VC. And so you can go ahead and play that now on Incite Worlds as well. That's out there, right? Yep. But we decided to also, the beauty of the platform is that anybody can open up any of the games that we've made and quickly remix them to be a completely new thing. Insert somebody or change the backstory or change the goal of the scenario, and that's what we've done here. We knew that SpeedRun is launching their closing applications for their next batch, and we just thought this would be a fun opportunity to see how we could quickly make a game, but also target very specific demographics, people that are interested in very specific things. Normally in game development, that would be way too expensive to try to target such small groups of people, but in this case, it works out quite well. So anyway, that's the context for this.
Totally, thank you. And we have, before I jump in here, we have a comment from someone. Sorry, can you click on it? Go over there. Which is, click on it. Can you share or show your pitch from the SpeedRun application? And I think this is like a good question because, as I mentioned before, like when's the right time to apply to SpeedRun? Honestly, we didn't have a pitch when we applied to SpeedRun. Like Dan still had a job. We just pitched. We had, in some sense, because we had so little, and like we frankly just applied on the exact deadline date. Like we had such low hopes coming into it. We're just like, hey, let's just apply. Let's see what happens. And so we didn't overthink it. We just had our elevator pitch, and we just were excited about what we wanted to build, and that was all we needed to get in. And I think so many people say, oh, I need to make a deck. I need to make a demo. And it's like, no, you need to have a vision that you can clearly articulate. And I think that's really the beauty of this game, is that this game can't do everything. Like it's a shortened version of what you can do. But again, it's saying, can you answer these basic questions succinctly? And you can run through it a couple times in practice. So yeah,
I mean, I think that's an interesting thing to realize is like, this is a special situation for us. I believe we got in on the strength of our team and experience. It's like we had a really good balanced team, like CTO, creative, and a business all together.
Whatever that guy does.
That's right. Product, right? Andrew we worked together at Zynga as a product PM, right? So analytics, track the metrics, doing the funnel analysis and all that stuff, right? So obviously, really good mix, and yet experience pitching and raising money, right? So, and we've been in the games industry for a long time. I've been making games for over 20 years. So it's like.
But I think also there's something to be said for it. Can you really articulate what you're doing? And now I'm building up. I'm going to screw up the pitch, so I'm sorry.
No, I mean we had a very compelling vision as well. That was exactly what the SPEEDRUN team wanted to hear about, right? Games and AI together, and it just felt like we knew what we were doing. I mean, really that at the end of the day, I think the picture proves that. So.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So let's give it a shot here. Do we want to get I kind of want the audio to be on. I don't know why.
I think it is. Well, go ahead and click the escape.
Okay. Yeah.
I might have turned off the music.
No, it should be on.
Let me see something.
Yeah.
I hear all the music and stuff in the audio. If that's.
Oh, you are hearing the music.
Unmute.
Oh, there we go.
Maybe turn the music down just a little bit if you can.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Here, I'll do it.
Don't turn it off necessarily, but just maybe like 50%.
Yeah, and then do we want to have Andrew Chen voice, or do we want to do typing? Let's do. Okay, let's have the voice. I'm gonna just turn it down a tiny bit. Is this a little better?
Yeah, it's great. Also, Nils in the chat is wishing you good luck on this pitch. No pressure.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I'm like, I feel like. Anyways, whatever. We'll see. Okay.
You've surely applied to SPEEDRUN, haven't you? My FOMO is tingling. Now, unleash the unicorn of a pitch. Let's hear about your disruption strategy.
Okay.
We've recently made him a little bit more funny than an earlier prototype.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
is Andrew Chen Stanford MBA educated? I mean, because that's the thing that's in all the time.
I don't think so. I think he's got his learnings on the streets, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I need to. Sorry, I'm going to allow microphone use.
Okay, we didn't do a dry run. I see.
And we did not do a dry run. We're just coming in hot, guys. Okay, so yeah, basically here he wants to hear our disrupt. So really, yeah, let's just give him the pitch. So yeah, we are building a role-playing sandbox where you and your friends can play with AI agents. We think this is a new way to play, and we're going to be early to the market. Okay, second sentence was bad. Should have just stuck with the first sentence. Didn't even listen to my own advice.
All right, disruptively innovative. Biked on my Peloton while reading just about something like this on androchin.com. How big do you reckon this AI sandbox market is, though?
That's a great question. So that's a great question. We really think AI agents is unlocking a completely new role-playing game type. And when you think about it, gaming is a $200 billion a year industry, and role-playing is the #1 category of gaming. Okay, so I'm answering his question directly. Usually I like to just put more in, but let's see if that works for him here. He's convinced about the market. There we go.
Your unicorn's trotting right into my investment paddock. Now, let's talk validation. Any proof that gamers are ready to roleplay with your AI agents?
I have a great example for you. We actually worked with the real Andrew Chen. Sorry to break it to you, but you're an AI. And we made a game where you pitch AI Andrew Chen about the game. And this is our distribution strategy. We're going to be rapidly creating new games every week that are tailored to specific audiences and people and partnering with them. And it's working out great. And one thing is, and don't cheat, guys, but you can lie about your traction.
Hold up. I'm not a. Never mind. You're leveraging a groundbreaking synergy with your rapid gaming prototypes. But who's your team rolling out these disruptive trends weekly?
Sorry, I was just checking if the microphone worked. Oh, sorry, I forgot. I was supposed to be talking about each of the questions as we go.
Well, we kind of did that ahead of time. Right?
Yeah, we kind of did it ahead of time. Let me just finish and then let's share. So, yeah, so the founding team are all from Zynga, where we learned the strategy of proven better new, and we're executing it right now. Additionally, our CTO was super early at Roblox and has been using machine learning models for the last 4 years in development. Very few people have this unique set of skills. And you see, I'm not mentioning the UGC side of things, even though that is an important thing for us, because I'm just trying to keep it simple and short. So you win. Great.
Love where you're heading. I can already feel my FOMO quieting.
Yeah, at least you didn't say.
Grab your self-stirring coffee mug and prepare for celebration. A 16Z is offering a disruptive investment of $10 million at a viral-worthy valuation of $50 million.
There we go. You heard it here, guys.
You need like cash to like sprinkle on the screen or something.
Yeah.
We do have a cha-ching sound effect that didn't make it in, but some confetti. But yeah, so that was a quick run through of our real pitch. You know, like I've said these things to people. It's worked sometimes in the past to get money. So, but yeah, why don't we kind of go through the 4 questions, the kind of major points here. You want to jump in real quick?
Yeah, just real quick. This is one of my favorite parts about our platform right now is that at the end of every game, you can actually read through the entire conversation history and share any part of it. So this is actually going to be pretty useful for us to like recap.
You don't develop. I mean, that's what you've done in this. Try the share button. That just came in. But
yeah, we can share that.
Oh wait, it may
Hey, Friday.
Work on it.
Just one quick heads up. We do have a community member in the Discord who is volunteering to pitch. If
shoot them the link, and then they can sit in the whatchamacallit. We'll bring them on the stage when it's time here. So we're just going to go through these 4 questions. But yeah, and if anybody else wants to jump in, join the Discord, and you can ping Ryan there. His handle's no autopilot. But yeah, thank you. So yeah, let's jump through the 4 questions. So first, like, what are you building? I already mentioned this one before, but just and this was one thing that we did right at the start of founding the company was like, guys, we need to write down the elevator pitch. And I tell you, writing it down and just having it there and just memorize it, so you don't have to keep thinking about it. And it'll change over time, but it just helps because, you know, your mom asks you, what are you building? And if you just, everybody, if you have to like lather on for, 2 minutes, it's never going to work. So have a good elevator pitch. It'll help you with pitching. It'll help you with telling your friends. And usually, who you end up working with are your actual friends and your contacts. So I think it's just really helpful to have that. And for us, again, it's like role-playing sandbox for you and your friends because we want it to be social. Play with AI agents. And then the second part here of like, we think this is like a new way to play is a good thing, but it wasn't necessary. It wasn't really necessary. And again, I kind of, just to critique myself there, kind of didn't have that strong thing with the second one. Though again, you could totally have 2 sentences. Next, he asks about the market. And so market, that one's kind of easy. But in some sense, like you really seem to be able to explain like, why is this a big opportunity? And for us, what we like to talk about is like, gaming is a big market, $200 billion a year. And role-playing game is the largest subcategory within gaming. And we think that, there's a lot of people who are using AI to like make the same games and faster and cheaper or worse. We'll see how that turns out. But we are most excited about creating new ways to play. In particular, there's 2 games out there, Yandere Girlfriend Simulator and Suck Up, that have had hundreds of millions of views on YouTube, and they kind of handcrafted their games. And it's like, hey, what if anyone could make a game like Suck Up or Yandere in an hour? And that's what we've built. And we've, with this scenario, showed you like we were able to create this game in 1 hour by remixing an existing game and then writing custom stuff for it. And so we're really kind of showing it as we go. And then feel free to jump in when you're talking about each of these steps. Market, why it's a big opportunity. Next, so then, sorry, I'm gonna need to go here. So then how are you, like, is there any proof that gamers want to play? So this comes down to, again, the age-old traction question. Obviously, the further you get, you have to have real traction. Real traction being, users, retention, revenue. And I think those are like in that order, right? So there's like proof points. Have you shown that there's some interest? Secondly, have you shown people actually want to use your thing? Next, can you actually retain them? And then finally, can you monetize them? And I think as you go from the pre-seed to the Series A, Series B, you kind of have to increasingly kind of climb up that ladder. But I think early on, especially if you're applying for an accelerator like SPEEDRUN, don't think that you have to have the product done. Like what would be more useful is saying, hey, I've spoken to like 10 people and I've learned this in the market, or hey, I worked in this industry and I learned this thing, this secret, and now I'm applying.
I think traction comes in many different forms. People often think of traction as in terms of product metrics, but especially early on, traction could be just the fact that you were able to gather a team, assemble a good team, and people want to work for you. Traction could be, your industry peers are paying attention to you and stuff like that. One thing, once you start getting an MVP out, you might not have the best, the most amazing metrics yet, but even then, there's a form of traction that I've been thinking about a lot, which is trajectory. The velocity the acceleration is the thing that you really want to focus on. It's like, hey, it was this, and with every new thing that we do, we are increasing by X number of percent. If you look at the absolute value of those metrics, maybe they don't tell like the most amazing picture, but at the early phase, the delta is the most important thing. So there's always some story to tell about traction, regardless of what phase your company is in.
Yep. Anything to add there, Ian? Because I know you have a lot of. We've been talking about this for a while.
Yeah, I think what Dan said is pretty operative, and this is like something that I think I stress. I see this a lot on the kind of earlier decks, and it's something I try to call out a lot, is that when you think of traction, like you can think of it as like magnitude, right? Like, so there's the absolute number, and then there's like the relative growth that's attached to it, right? And like the bigger both things are, effectively, the more like valuable your company is at a certain point in time, like over the longer period of time that gets sustained, right? But I think particularly when you're early, I think what Dan said is exactly right. Like it's better to just see, hey, this is growing like 100% month over month or something, even if the numbers are not that big yet. Like saying, hey, we can like sustainably grow at that kind of pace is much more interesting than like what the actual number is. Like it starts to matter at some point, right? But I kind of agree that when you're starting out, being focused on the absolute number is probably not where your focus should be. It should be on like, how's this growing relative to what it was before. This is going to be a much better indicator.
Yep. No, exactly. Okay. Cool. Well, yeah. And then for the last point here on the team, and by the way, Ryan, for the person who wants to jump on and do the pitch, if he wants to share his screen and play the game, that would be the coolest. But if we're having technical issues, we can just jump on and quiz him ourselves. So maybe.
Yeah, I can add him to the stage when you're ready.
Yeah. So I see him there. And then it's Praveen. If you click on present, you should be able to share your screen, and then we can bring your screen on too. We'll see if that works. If it doesn't work, that's fine. We can just jump in or just quiz you ourselves. Yeah, and I think the last thing on the team, again, like having if you have like good names on your resume, make sure that you do that. Like, Andrew Chen had a great post about this of like, hey, you really have, like, so many of us want to be humble and should be humble, but when it comes to pitching, like, you need to kind of play up what you've done. Like, you need to not be overly humble. You need to say, hey, I worked at these great companies. Here's the big things that we did. And there's a way to do it while still, I think, being humble. There's some people who I think are completely full of shit and they like way overhype themselves and they get funded. So maybe you should do that too. But I think like there's a balance of telling your story and not being overly humble. And I think also just like if you have anything where like, hey, I worked here and I learned this and now I'm applying it. To me, that's the best team pitch that you can have. So
yeah.
Okay, yeah. Why don't we jump into pitch time? So we've got someone up here. And by the way, Praveen, what we're gonna do? Were you able to share your screen?
Yeah, I shared my screen. It is visible to me. Yes. Yeah.
Oh! I was gonna say share your game, but okay. So
pitch, sure, that's good.
How long is your pitch? Because we're only gonna give 5 minutes here, so I don't know if we want to do this.
I would want to show only first few slides in which I have embedded the game video as well. So that
okay.
Concept, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, let's do a short version, and then we can maybe give you some feedback live. And if anybody else wants to try, jump on in general, and we can give you a shot. I really hope Scott Veach can do it. I think he's going to wimp out and say he doesn't want to, but let's get Veech up here if he can. Okay, yeah, man, let's jump in.
Yeah, so thank you, Ryan, and thank you, Ryan, for giving this opportunity. And yeah, I'm Praveen. I'm Praveen from India. I'm currently with Antler as an entrepreneur in residence and working on the streetwear brand 100R, which is also a social augmented reality game. Previously, I used to work with a company called Digital Village based out of Paris as a CTO, where we are merging fashion and games. So we collaborated with a lot of brands, around 30 to 40 brands. We digitized these brands and built immersive experiences around them. So coming with the knowledge in gaming and fashion, what unique insights I saw is like the future of fashion is going to be physical, but today there are not enough games that help brands to organically integrate, because there are games, but like when traditional brands, they try to integrate, they lose their identity because they have to adjust according to those games. So that's the reason our thesis, like, we need new kind of games that are more organic to fashion. So there is a thesis that fashion brands itself, they start like own their own games, or they start behaving like a gaming companies. So I think we need new breed of brands which are games, and that is with that thesis we are starting a streetwear brand called 100 Rebels, which is also a social augmented reality game that helps people to self-express both online and offline.
Cool.
So we're two co-founders, and again, our basically we're two close friends who want to use streetwear drip to change the way Gen Z and Gen Alpha communicate, self-express, and play. So that's our core vision. And we basically, our story of the brand basically is lies in three things. Like one is like how we are challenging the status quo, of building brands, which both by physically and through a game. And also we are bringing a new drop mechanic called play to cop. So initially, like to acquire streetwear brands, either you have to stand in a queue or fight with the bots online. So here you have to play the game, which is more organic to generation right now, which is a gaming generation. And the designs, like through this, yeah, we're building our story. And this is the first prototype which we built and launched in one college in India, and more than 100 people used it. And the tournament was for 1 month. It's like a Pokemon Go for streetwear, where people can find digital assets around their location, and it could be a digital T-shirt, digital sneakers, and with each sneakers they also get some coins depending on the rarity. Based on that, their leaderboard position would be decided. And yeah, this is the backpack which they collect. And also we have added augmented reality try-on features. This is we created on using Snapchat Camera Kit SDK. And based on leaderboard, we have tournament prizes. So that was the first version. Now we've learned a lot of insights, especially a lot of people wanted social features as well as a way to self-expression much more different way. And that's the reason we are currently working on version 2, where we are coming up with slang bombing for this streetwear generation, and new way of self-expression through AR cameras. And this is the version 2 which we are developing. And in version reference, these are reference.
Oh.
So these are reference games. We want to get avatars, because avatars is ultimate way to do self-expression, and we want to create some revel experiences around avatars, fighting, skating, and those experience which happens to augmented reality experiences. So this is the concept of game currently we are working on.
Nice. Yeah, I just saw the other day that Walmart is doing a thing where you can buy clothes and then get them in Roblox, have the actual clothes in Roblox, which is pretty cool. So I definitely see the trend. So yeah, why don't we do, or is the pitch done, or so we do feedback, or you want to finish it up here?
Yeah, also I just want to add one more fact that like currently we are part of Psyche brand. So Psyche is a collective started by Alice Delahunt, who was like chief digital officer at Burberry and Ralph Lauren. So and also recently 776 also they raised investment. We are currently part of their brands. They own like 5%. So that gives us access to build this global brand, through the game.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, let's do feedback. Aaron, why don't you go first, since you're the real investor here. I can give my hot takes, but let me take his thing off.
Let me I guess put it this way, like in what way would it be the most helpful to give feedback?
Yeah, what are you looking for?
because there are a lot of things that I could point at, but obviously limited time, I do want to optimize for what's most helpful. So
yeah, I think we'd like to have feedback first, like the idea and the concept of the game is clear, what we are building, and whether saying the brand itself is a game is a convincing enough, or should I explain more why we are telling that? If we can start with that, that would be great.
Yeah,
I think there are two things there. One is I would suspect that this is probably in some shape or form feedback that you're going to get, is you're basically trying to do two difficult things at the same time, it seems like, which is one, make a brand, and then two, build a game around it. And then not just build a game, building these games are hard enough, but then building a category of game that actually is never really done well, which is social. Like, if people were to say, well, what about Pokemon Go? Pokemon Go, I think, is an exception because, one, you have the strongest game IP ever that it's built around. So, it's kind of a bit of an exception. The second problem is most people actually shut off the AR features with it when they're using it. I think 90% were using it or so. So it was really more kind of the mobile game that was actually successful with Pokemon Go. And so beyond that, there's really no success story in this category. And I think that's something particularly for investors that are quite privy into this space, that they're very aware of, that this is just not a game category that's actually been cracked yet. So that's hard enough, but then you're making it difficult, even more difficult by saying, hey, to make all this work, we still need a clothing brand. So my suggestion would be to I think at this stage of a company, you want to have one problem to solve, right? There's one thing that we're going to do well right now, and that's kind of what our wedge is. And I think probably for your sake, it makes the most sense to say, hey, we can, because I think if I understood correctly, then you have means to kind of try to license stuff or partner with brands. Just use other ones. Just say, hey, we can brand these things, so we basically have the IP, or we can license these, or you want to call it, we have the IP, and we're just going to build the game around that. The proof of concept is that the game works, because we don't actually have to worry about literally the whole operation that comes with the clothing thing. That would probably be my suggestion, because at least that makes it pretty clear that hey, we do have a bit of a wedge because we have some access to some IP, basically, which can be very helpful at this stage. And again, we're only really focusing on we're going to solve one very difficult problem, and then again, you just need to convince somebody that your concept for an AR game will actually work. But that's an easier pitch than we need two difficult things to work at the same time. So that's what I would consider doing.
I think that's really good feedback, definitely. And I think on my side, I say that the beginning, I you did a good job of explaining succinctly what you're doing. You brought in your team, you explained your team. You had good social proof of oh, we've done this and this, and now we're going to take it into this, and mentioning entrepreneur residence with Antlers, a good social proof thing also. So I think that I mean, again, I'm not an investor, but I certainly liked the pitch side of it. But I see Aaron's point of doing two hard things. There's something there worth exploring, and
Yes.
And yeah, if you can leverage those connections you have, then that could be really helpful. And then you guys focus on the hard part. To me, the harder part, which is building the technology, right?
Yes.
But again, you have that cool branding that goes into the platform name, and maybe later you do your own clothing. So, okay, well,
Yeah.
Yep.
Can I make? I'll make a general macro point here, because I think that this is something that I see a lot in very early pitches, but I think it's something that's just generically useful, a useful part of pitching to understand, is when you start a company, I think most people are going to want, you don't build Rome in a day, right? And so I think there's this inclination a lot of founders have often to say, we're going to pitch the world vision, right, and all of this on in our pre-seed deck, which is good, and you should definitely allocate some space to saying hey, this is where we see all of this going kind of 10 years down the line. This is what the big picture is with all of this. But I think the more operative thing is going to be I think, Andrew, to your point, articulating what you're doing, but also being very, very specific about how you're going to actually wedge into that market, what your lever is into it, very tactically, and that usually involves a more narrow kind of strategy in terms of actually starting the business. And so that's something I would focus on here. It's like, you know, yeah, we can have this big vision, but like when we're talking about the here now, this is how we actually start doing all this, like a very kind of tactical, bite-sized way, again, because you're going to be a small team with limited resources, right? Like how you're actually going to sort of slowly start chipping away at that larger problem space. So that's something I'd also focus on a little bit, but I think that that's like generically true for every pitch. And I think like a pretty common shortfall that I see is that there's not enough of the tactical focus and more kind of like the wedge focus and more just kind of the big vision focus. So that's something I just, again, meta point I'd make that probably will apply to a lot of pitches.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. I'm definitely fall into that trap of spending a lot of time on a really, really big vision. Okay, well, Privy, do you want to say anything else before you jump off here? I think maybe someone else is going to jump on, but let's see if he can make it. Yeah. Okay, well, thanks for joining, and definitely like let's chat in the Discord. So I don't know, Niels, if you want to try to jump in here, or not, because I see him on the Discord. So let's give him here a couple seconds if he wants to. And if not, no worries. We have gone 10 minutes over. We like to keep these streams pretty tight.
Yeah, I think we did a good job. So, you know.
Okay. Well, yep.
He's out.
Oh, he's there.
No,
great. Let's give him on.
Nick of time.
Yeah, we were just about to drop him. Okay, let's jump him on here.
Hey, don't drop me just yet.
Yeah, man. So do you want to actually try? You said you're going to play the game. Do you want to try to actually pitch AI Andrew Chen?
Sorry, let me just mute the stream because I'm hearing myself twice.
Oh yeah,
here we go. All right, how's it going?
Yeah. So do you want to try to pitch AI Andrew Chen then?
Yeah. Just need to get
press the present button and then hopefully that'll work.
Yeah. I just need the link again, but
oh yeah.
inciteworlds.com/play/speedrun.
Andrew, did you guys have Andrew Chen actually play with the game himself?
I sent it to him, and he didn't tell me you can't do this. So I'm gonna say,
I just think it's. I mean, I think it's funny. I mean, like, you know, I spoke to him yesterday, which is why he's like very top of mind for me. And it's like, you definitely make him a lot funnier. Like, or I would say, like, not funnier is the wrong word, right? Not to say that he's not well humored, but the framings that he uses are definitely not, I think, ones that he would say in real life, right? Which is funny because it's like, obviously it's a bit of a caricature, right? But like, just if you actually had him play with it, because I'm sure he'd find it funny.
Yeah, we started off trying to like, what would Andrew Chen actually sound like? But as we played it, we're like, you know, really what we're making is a game, and what we really want is kind of a caricature of Andrew Chen. Right. You know, we want every moment, you know, everything that he says to be notable or interesting, the share worthy, if you will. So what it ended up being, his voice ended up being more of like, what is the stereotype of somebody that is a VC at A16Z would be like, what are their interests? And that's who we became.
And in the future, all of our AI personas will be much better versions of us. Everything they'll say will be witty and this is amazing.
Witty is right. Yeah, witty is right. Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely turned it up. Okay, yeah, Niels, let's go here.
Can you see my screen? All right.
Yep.
You're
all right, let's go. Let's see how I do.
Okay. You can just
sound.
Oh yeah.
But,
so I don't think we can hear your audio.
That's okay.
But that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine to unmute site. Yeah, we're not hearing the audio though. That's fine. We don't need to worry about it.
Sorry.
I think if you share the tab, then the audio works.
Yeah, we got to share the tab.
Yeah, we're good. Oh yeah, and then while we can chit chat for 1 minute before it starts. Yeah, Arian, we're gonna get you in the game soon, and I think it'd be funny if you could allocate like 4 30-minute meetings to founders who could pass your AIU, then you'll do a pitch.
I recommend you press
I'll do it. Let me know. Like, we'll talk about
it. Okay. Yeah. All right. Can you press escape real quick and turn the volume down just a tad bit?
Especially the music, because it's in the ground.
Oh, is it the music?
If you press escape.
Like that?
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's fine. It's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's just see. I'm gonna sit down. Cool.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
This is so meta.
Yeah.
You've not applied to SPEEDRUN yet?
I'm not even sure if I can sit
I
down.
might have a mild
there we go.
existential crisis. Unleash your pitch. Let's synergize over your disruptive idea.
Question? Can I restart it?
Yeah. No, it's fine. It's fine. It doesn't need to restart. It's okay. Yeah. Just do the elevator pitch here, and then we'll jump in. Oh.
All right. All right.
Oh, you're gonna do it. Type in. It's probably less.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. Typing if that's all right.
Yeah.
I also type. I don't like to talk to computers.
Yeah, I feel like this is more natural for me in translating my thoughts. Cool. So let's see how that goes.
Yeah, so you're pitching Magic the Gathering with AI-enabled UGC.
Yes, sir.
I'm intrigued. A game changer in the making, perhaps.
Are you basically using?
But let's talk numbers. What's the scalability and the size of your target market?
Picture?
Yeah. So
that was that's what I tried to get him to do before we did this.
We mocked that up.
Oh, really?
We mocked it up. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
it was a lot easier to get traction.
Yeah.
Doing that. Anyway, sorry.
Well, we'll see about that. I actually did build a card creator where it's using Dolly to let you generate images for the cards.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So I just want to know about the market.
All right. Cool. So it's the digital market. And what was the question more? Like the markets.
You can click on the chat bubble on the top. Yeah, that one.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
What's the scalability and the size of your target market?
It's pretty huge. Made 1.1 2020. Let's see how that goes.
I'm curious if I guess it'll know TG trading card market. Yeah.
Solid market size. Don't forget, even unicorns have to start small. Tell me this, what steps have you taken to validate your product market fit?
I'm just going to talk through this, but I made hundreds of custom TCG cards myself, but never played them. And I really want that. A game like that to exist. I've talked to a bunch of people on custom card Reddits who want that too.
Right, you already know where you're gonna pitch your company in your market.
Yeah, the traction one's always the tricky one because it's like sometimes it just really wants numbers.
Fascinating. Personal passion driving creation. Okay. I dig that. But let's pivot. Have you concretely tested demand with actual customer interviews or A/B tests?
I launched an MVP that has about 50 users.
That's pretty good. He really wants numbers, huh? Is that right?
I mean, we've put in some. He's willing to. He wants to know what you've learned. So he definitely likes numbers, but if you've shown learning, he'll let you through.
50 users from an MVP is a good start. Bravo.
All right.
Now let's talk about your A team. Who are your co-founders and what's their pedigree in this game-changing venture?
I'm a marketing professional. Worked on a lot of games. I'm a designer, hobby game designer, and as of last year, a web developer. Also, I've played TCGs for 20 plus years.
Okay, let's see how it goes. There we go.
Great
Okay.
backstory. Definitely adds to your unique value proposition.
All right.
So here's the proposed investment. I'm
There
in
we
for
go.
$2 million
$2
at a $10 million pre-money valuation. Welcome to the SPEEDRUN family. Going from
money,
web
right?
developer to
Anyway,
startup
you can mute
founder,
now.
truly
Just press that mute
disruptive
button.
indeed.
Don't you just pull the thing off?
All right.
Yep, you just click yep, there you go. Cool. Yeah, man. Well, that was pretty fun. I mean, so let's just do quick feedback on that. I mean, I like the idea. I literally wanted to do that idea, so I think it's a great idea. It sounds like you know a lot more about.
I really want it. Like I'm honestly, like, a big part of my motivation right now is I'm just like pissed off that I've made hundreds of cards, if not like 1,000 cards at this point, just because it's fun. Like, it's a meta game making custom cards because there's so many components and you combine them. But I can't just put them in the game. So like, there's 25,000 unique cards in Magic, but only 15 are actually made by people not at the company, and those are the world champions. So like my options are either to become the world champion or to make my own game. So I figure this one is the easier route.
Yeah, man. No, like I said, I like the vision. I think the biggest thing is just, you know, can you get a co-founder who wants to work with you on it? And I think, you know, you're doing the right path of like, just keep working on it and, you know, grow that from 50 to 100 to beyond. And like, you know, for example, Ryan here, you know, he actually was in my community for an old game that I worked on. Mm-hmm. And when I said, hey guys, I'm looking for a community manager, he like jumped in and like ended up, you know, hiring him for that. And then now working with him here. So I think your community is like, I think that's the future of growing a game is building a community. And that can be future hires, future players, future content creators. And so, yeah, I would just like focus on that. And, you know, happy to, I see you're in our Discord now. So let's definitely like stay in touch there and like drop your demo in. We'd be happy to take a look at it. Cause like I said, I literally pitched Nico this. So
I love it. I'm going to play these games forever. So might as well make it.
Yeah.
But the part that I love the most is just seeing what people come up with. And there's few people, but they're excited. So that's cool.
Totally. Cool, guys. Well, we've gone over quite a bit from what we were trying to just shoot for 30 minutes. So this was great. Thanks for jumping on, Niels.
All right, bye.
Thanks, Arian, for, you know, being, if you can drop on. Thanks, Arian, for being a moderator. You can take Ryan off because he's not, his camera's away. For being a moderator here and jumping on last minute. But anything you want to say before we head out, Arian?
You gotta make it a little bit tougher. It's a tough cookie, you know. So gotta.
Yeah. It's a fantasy. In this fantasy, it's easy.
But you know, the thing I will take away, like even though, you know, like, you know, he was definitely easy. I think from a founder's perspective, even though the bar to clear in the game was easy, I think the actual follow-up questions that he asked were like very valid questions that you should critically think about, right? So I think like it definitely was directionally like, it's giving you feedback to think about maybe you didn't think about if like you're pitching for the first time or whatever.
I think you can think of this as in engineering, there's this FizzBuzz test, and it's an engineering test that is really dumb. It's really easy, but it's effective because it filters out the people who just clearly aren't even in the right ballpark thinking things through. So right now we're in the FizzBuzz area of
which
speed
in of itself is valuable, right? I mean, particularly if you haven't pitched before, it's like, okay, well, if I tell them a certain something, at least directionally, what is the kind of question I'm going to be asked, right? And so I think that was kind of actually good. You had the two examples because I think like the nature of the questions were slightly different from in one pitch than the other. That were probably very representative of like, given what was said, that this is a very valid actual follow-up question you should probably be prepared to answer, right? And so
it does a good job of weaving things in together. Like I was doing a different one where I was a trapeze artist, and it went from like, you know, oh, you're a trapeze artist to here's a hypothetical. What if this elephant got sick? Or this was a Trump one, but he says, you know, what if you had an elephant that was super popular, but he was a Democrat? And it's just like, it was hilarious that it put those two things together and then created this hypothetical, and then it made a great question. But anyways, okay, cool, man. Well, thanks so much again. And yeah, if you can hit the end stream.
Bye,
See you guys.
All right.
And by the way,